and you can share.
Yeah, I don't know. Is it? Oh, do I? Oh no. Can you see this? Are you, okay. Ooh. Turn the sound off. Okay. I have to share my screen? Oh yeah, how do I do that? Turn it off.
It's not doing stuff. Oops. See?
Okay. Oh yeah, that's when it does that weird. Okay. Okay. Are we ready to learn now? So, okay. Testing in Rails. Has anybody used RSpec? Has RSpec been talked about? Yeah.
I don't think we have.
Okay, so you should always test your code. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. The best reason to test your code is like if you get something working and then you make changes that might affect other things, you want to be able to have a quick way to like run a test and see if your new changes broke anything else that already exists. Because a lot of your, especially in your models, like your methods might be related, like use other methods, and if you go and change one, it's nice to know solidly that you're not breaking everything else. And so, like, there's a lot of gems that help, because just testing, like, you can just test with Rails, but there's a lot of gems that kind of make that process a little bit easier, and RSpec is one of them and probably the most popular. And I use it because I found a book called Testing with RSpec. Oh yeah, so we used a framework called Test Unit last time, and you can use, it's like, Test Unit is the default, but most people like to use the framework RSpec. And it makes it readable and easier to just write tests. So I guess the first step, like anything, is to add the gem to your gem file. So I guess we can do that. I'm going to do this in Hackblog and hope for the best. Yeah, RSpec Rails. A lot of gems, like they'll have a non-Rails version. Oh. Now that's being broadcast on. And then always you want to bundle. Okay, I need to hide this. I need to.
So you have to bundle and do RSpec install?
So you want to do, oh yeah, well, you're jumping the gun. I just add the gem and then bundle. I'm trying to figure it out. Do I write the command here? Does anyone?
Close those, close that one. Just shows all of them.
And then open like a new one?
Yeah, that's just a project.
Sorry? But like run project, but I want to like have the console before. Like I want to
menu, it's a must be
The plus thing
Oh,
to the right,
right,
not there.
right next to the.
Goes to the tab.
It's just a tab.
this, oh,
I think they-
Neutral.
okay. Okay,
Tree, do you want just changing the theme?
changing the theme, like,
Yeah, it's just like right on right.
yeah,
So at the top, just go to view. The top will call.
oh, view,
Yeah. Sorry, themes, sorry. And just make it dark.
cobalt,
Yeah.
oh, yes, like here you, oh, so the whole thing, okay. And then, okay, so now we have to do a Rails generate RSpec install. No. So this is going to create a bunch of files for you in the spec. So like what comes with Rails is like these test ones. And now that you once you run that, you get these like this spec folder, and then it has this, and it already built a post spec for you. Wait, that just, I feel like this was actually created by Ryan. Because I don't think Rails is that smart. But you guys should have a spec folder.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Does everybody have a spec folder? Okay, successful. So normally what happens is once you run this, every new model that you create will have a folder, but it won't recreate your previous models that you've already done. So if you do this partway into the project like we're doing now, the next one that you have to run is like Rails generate RSpec model post for the post model. So, and you'd have to, I mean, we're just doing it for the post model now, but you have to do it for any existing models that were already created. So you should do that. I'm not going to do that because mine was clearly already done on the hack blog. So you're running this, you're going to generate the RSpec for the model that already exists. So everybody ran that? Okay, and so now if you look in your specs, under models, you should have a post_spec.rb file. Is that working for everybody? Okay. And so this, like, obviously this was already a little bit more, but you should have some, it just, what's nice is it just gives you this little sort of like helper on how to start the test. So like, add some examples or delete this file or do whatever you want. So this isn't an actual test. I mean, like the top one isn't an actual test. It just like gives you sort of like where to start. So now we can like start adding like actual tests. So if you want to like delete what's in the middle and sort of add this, it should stringify its title to Okay, so if you understand this, all like RSpec like is meant to help you make tests that are like readable and easy to write. So like they always start with it. It's like a key word for like to start the test case. And the string following it should just be a description of what you're testing. So like it, and usually you put should, and then say what it should do. So when you like run the test, you see like, you'll see that description, like should stringify the title, and you know exactly what it should do. Like that should be like very descriptive about exactly what your test is doing. And then like, there's a do block. So like inside this is your test. So this is just actually creating a new post. So like if we create a new post with the post title, and then expect is like another keyword for that you put the argument that you expect in. And then to or to not, you put at the end, and then the next one is equal. So it's a syntax that's used to make it very like human readable. So you're like expect p.toString to equal my post. Does that make sense? And this is always like, it's always like if you see down here the examples like expect A to equal B, expect A to be greater than B. Like it's basically just all your logic. And it's always like expect the first thing to be somehow compared to the second thing. And now to run the test, you go into your console. I'm going to try this, but I don't know. And then RSpec dot. Is it running for anybody else?
Yeah, 0 failures.
What, like, 0 failures means all your tests, like, all the tests that pass, that ran pass, and one pending means you have one that's not being run.
Yeah, so if you keep the first one, yeah, so the first one that's like run will be like pending, which means it's not like, it hasn't been created yet. So that's where you're getting a pending. For example, 0 failures. So I have
one pending, but I don't have that.
you don't,
Did you remove the first test that was there? Yeah,
that's why.
So like I added.
Sorry?
Left it and see.
If you okay, so if you left, did you okay, let me see. Did you delete this line? So this is what's causing him to have a pending. So that's why you don't have a pending. You just have like a successful one. And this is, I guess, just to let you know that you have a bunch of RSpecs that you haven't done anything about. And here's some documentation. I mean, there's a lot that you can do, and like every test that you do is going to be specific to like the exact thing that you're doing in your model. But this is why it's also nice. It's good to keep your model simple, also for testing reasons. But you can also, but you should, okay, so here's another example. And this is also an example of like multiple tests for one method. So like, for instance, so if you look at this one, it's like, you have like should includes post with matching title, should include posts with matching content. Actually, let's go back up to the first one and get it to fail. So I feel like here, instead of writing, like change the second, like equal to something different. Because then they're not going to be equal to. Like, yeah. That's for booze and not sex.
That's what
I don't know. Oh. Yeah, so what you'll say is so now it's like you have 4 examples, 1 failed. And it'll say, it expected XXX, but it got my post. Does that make sense? So like basically, this line is saying, I expect post toString, the method toString, for that to equal XXX. So it's like I expected XXX, but the reality of running that method is my post. I think that when you're, like it's a principle of TDD, but even if you're not using like TDD, you always want to make sure that your tests fail, because if you can't make your tests fail, you're probably not testing the right thing. So you should always I always run my test to make it work, run it to make it fail, run it to make it work again. But if you can't make a test fail, then you're not testing the right thing. And it'll explicitly, and sometimes when it fails, it's good because it tells you explicitly what's happening, and so you can really debug easily from there. So I'm going to change this back. And run it again, even though it's going to take an hour. Oh yeah, and it also says it fails, and it'll be post should stringify to its title. So it'll explain exactly, when they pass, you don't really get as explicit a message, but when it fails, did it fail again? Oh, maybe I didn't save the file. So yeah, so when it passes, you don't get as much, but when it fails, it'll tell you exactly, and this is why you should write good descriptions, because then once you have a lot of things that you're testing, you don't want to have to be what did I write? What did I mean there? You want to just be able to really see it in the console explicitly. So now, if you remember, a long time ago, we created in the models Gesundheit this method called entitled that takes a value and it returns the lower case of, I don't know what it's returning. Oh, it's just returning posts that have that value in the title or content. So if we go to all right, this is probably easier to read. So in this way, so if you see, now we have the describe, and then 3 different tests here, because they're all for the entitled method. And it's probably a good idea to run a few methods, depending on how complicated your methods are, run a few tests on them. So this is it should include posts with a matching title. It should include posts with matching content, but it should not include posts that don't match. So negative testing is also probably good because you can always get a positive response, but sometimes you don't want a response and it might still give you a response. So it's good to do a little bit of that. So if you want to copy this, Sorry,
It starts to describe.
wait. Oh yeah, let me look. I guess, no,
Describe, it's how to describe.
sorry?
You embed how to describe, it's how to describe, or.
Yeah, I think so because it's all for post, right? This is all for posts, so it probably,
Yeah, you can have that message.
yeah. And you can see we're using like to include here as a different sort of parameter. So if you've written them all and you run them and they all pass, right? So I feel like now try to make each one fail.
What am I did fail?
Why did it fail?
This is person couch, you pick person couch. This is going into the post one, that's the thing, right?
Yeah. The post underscore spec.rb.
Smashing on title, this is moving for it looks like that's a complicated. I'm not trying to match.
Sorry.
If you were measuring title, it would not stop.
You can do it as to describe.
Copy that or
Yeah, because you're saying for post, I'm not.
you scroll up a bit, yeah.
And then, yeah, so try writing again.
So yes, you want to measure title. Yeah, I think this is something.
It looks like,
So,
Yeah. Here.
you change it on.
we're just gonna
Oh.
So,
So,
would you,
yeah, so
Right there.
this one and this one match. That
No,
one
it's
is not
function.
and this one above it, and this one is like, yeah, it's for 13.
so we're.
Yeah, so this is 7 and it's 20. So this is inside that one.
I don't think I think it is.
So, yeah, I know. Sure. Yeah.
Line 13. Oh, it's our spec with a capital S.
I think we're gonna call
Yeah, so. Did you go to the, what's model?
So this one should just be Strat, not our special Strat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
What's the book you mentioned?
Oh, okay, I think everyday testing
Right, does that make sense? So like inside your R spec.
with our
Having
spec.
that you prescribe, that's for the method. Okay?
This is the book I learned how to test with. I'll like put the link in Slack.
Is testing a very common thing in life? So
Yes, like this is,
it's managing tests.
Oh, for sure. I mean, you have to test because I think the thing is like when you're building something like this project, it's like fairly easy and you know most of what's going on. As soon as you have a project that's like been running for 6 months and you're making changes and like you're adding things and like methods dependent on other methods, like anytime you go in to make a change, it's going to take you so long to figure out if that change is going to break anything if you don't test. Yes.
you go back to the post problem.
Yes.
We're just gonna copy something random. Thank you.
You know what I mean? So it's like, so this is like you can run through and if you like make a change, you can run your whole test suite again and see that nothing broke. Whereas like otherwise you'd have to just manually go and like remember every test case
Title.
that could break. So I feel like, yes, it's very common if you're making a project that's even slightly big.
Yeah. And then these are both done.
I mean, it is like somewhat like not the funnest thing to do, but it's more fun than having to fix broken things.
So there doesn't matter which way.
No.
I find myself, because I'm testing it out myself.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'll change it with it. And just
So I
oh,
use arbitrary, like that's.
create the user, change the password.
Yeah.
So that it's-
But that's the thing, yeah. So that's the thing, and it's like probably manageable for a project that size. But when you have a project that's like big and more like running for like a time, and you have multiple developers working on it, it's like the amount that you have to do that every single time grows to a point that's like not manageable. So instead of doing that, you just hit rspec dot and then it runs all those tests. Yeah. Does yours run now, Robin?
It is, right?
Okay, that's good. So did you make it not break again?
Oh, you actually make it break.
Yeah, like just, I mean, just make it fail.
Okay.
Has everybody had a chance to like make it pass and then make it fail?
I could-
You couldn't make it fail, so that's not promising, I feel.
What I meant was,
I didn't have.
You don't know how to make it fail? Well, I mean, so if you look at the first one, it says it should include posts with matching title. And then we create a post with the title match. And then we say we're expecting the title to match. Or we're expecting something that calls that method to include that post because it has title. But so if we change it to titles, and then wait for a billion hours. Yeah, here, like,
it's just like, come on.
I don't-
like,
okay.
just come on, test.
so now, so see, it failed. So it's saying like the post entitled should include the posts with the matching title, and it's expecting that this P to be included, but since now the title doesn't match, it's failing. If it didn't fail, then it wouldn't really be checking for anything. Does that make sense to people? And then again here, like here I could make the title match, but if I make the content, okay, I'm gonna add this. Well, does it take as long to run on your computer?
No, it's 2 seconds.
Okay. Like usually it takes long if you have a lot of tests, but no. Actually, so this did not fail because it doesn't matter because it was still included because the method itself just checks for title or content. So technically, this is sort of, like it didn't fail in the way that I initially kind of expected it to. But thinking about it, I understand why. Does that make sense to people? Okay, so now they both failed. Is this, like, do you understand what's happening? No? Yeah? Okay.
So it's creating a post with the title said CCC.
Yeah.
It has content YYY.
Yes.
Then it's expecting for it to be titled match.
Yeah, so if we look at the entitled method is a method that takes the value, which is match, and it searches the lowercase version of that for in the title and the content. So it's like searching both the title and the content, and it's returning posts that have that content. So I know it's like maybe the name of the method is a little bit confusing, but that makes sense what the method's doing. Like it's returning posts that have that matching content, either in the title or the content. So here, so in the test, it's saying, it's expecting if you run this method, and it's like it's a class method, so that's why it's post, capital post. So post I'm entitled with the search term match, it's expecting that P is going to be included in the response. But it's not included here because there's nothing that matches match. Does that make sense?
So match is a keyword or?
Well, match is just anything. Like I could put, so if I did this, I could put like Y here. Now it's not going to fail.
Oh, okay.
Because this is, okay, so, and I think it's like the method itself is a little confusing, but this is like, this is a method that's a, and it says self dot, which means it's a class method. You call it on the class and not on one instance of the class. Entitled, and then it takes a parameter, or it takes an argument. And so this is the argument, or like a Y, post entitled Y, it's just the argument. It could be anything. So like, if a person was like, if this was a website, you might have a search bar, and then you would just type Y into it. But here we're just like hard coding it in. Does that make sense? So the exercise is try adding tests to a few more methods in the post. Remember to have different tests to test different aspects of the method. Sometimes one is okay, but think about what could go wrong. So I guess maybe you want to do this alone or in class, like all together or separately. Okay. So we can pick like a method. So we have this by method, which is, I guess, asks, returns true if the author is the author that you put in. Okay, so what should it do? And, by question mark. It's this. Sorry, it's this.
Basically, it's a method that you pass in an author, and it checks to see if that post was created by that author. So you can say, was this post by Joe, or was this post by Bob?
Should be by author.
Well, it's like a question, and it returns like a true or false. So you'd be like, post one dot by question mark Joe, and it would test whether that post was equal to the
That
thing.
post was created by Joe.
Yeah, was.
So if Joe is the author, it will return true. And if
So should be author name. Like in the it should include author.
I feel like maybe something like should it. I don't know. Should return true.
should return true if the author of the post is
Is selected or like
the
is.
author in your query. It's not. Should
Yeah.
return true if
The author of those matches.
Oh, it's author and post matches. Perfect. Sometimes coming up with succinct statements are difficult.
That's part of the program.
Maybe.
Yes. So now we can write like, so now we're going to create a post. Oh yeah. Sorry. Thank you. Okay.
Have it and then have your line go in there.
Okay. We're going to create a post. but I guess title something, content something else. News, and then I could spell author. Joe. Okay.
And then what should we expect with these? We should expect that what's the thing that we're testing?
Author.
But what's the thing that we're actually trying to test?
Yes. So we're testing, it's like an instance method, so it's like on the post that we just created. And then we put by.
And that should be passive over author.
Yeah. And then equal, I guess it's true?
Yeah.
Okay.
Does this make sense? We have a thing, we're calling method on it, and we're expecting it to be true. Because in this case, our author that we're passing in is the same as the author that you created.
Yeah. Also a good way to truly understand what your methods are doing. Because you have to, it's like a new level of understanding when you have to go test it. I'm gonna make the other ones not fail though, because that's annoying. So. Let's save it. Here, wait for 5,000 hours. Yes.
Yes, if your validations are in match.
Yes.
You don't have to, but if it's like, it's usually good practice to set up your post as like a true thing. There's tricks we can do.
So this is interesting. It failed because it was expected true, but it got false.
So, okay. So is author actually into me, or is it me?
Author is like here. It was, I looked, like it is a
string. And you like capitalize it properly and something.
yeah.
I think author is,
Also a method?
well, I think author is a method.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's true. So it's a method and a thing on it. So is that it's fighting? Okay, I'm just gonna put X here for a second. So now it doesn't fail because it's like we have like a thing on the database that's called author, but then we also had a method called author, and so shouldn't do that. I mean, I feel like this just happened because there's a lot of things going on, but it's a good reason for testing, just in case you accidentally do that, and then you have different places where you're expecting different things to happen with the same method. But we can also now just test this method if we want.
Thing is, I think how do you create brand new user?
Yeah, so I actually, that's why I was gonna describe author so what should it do, first of all? Well, let's look at the method. It returns the email of the user. Actually, let's also just double check. Oh yeah. Sorry, what did I? Oh, yeah.
Or it's scrolling.
Okay, so how can we describe this test? It should,
It should return
users, yeah. Let's say posts, posts, author, users email. Fair. I mean, it's, sorry? Well, first we have to create the things that it's gonna do. So as you were saying before, we need a user now because it's a relationship and not like a direct thing on the table. So this, what I would do is to do user equals user dot user@email.com. Is there anything else validated on the user? Like, does it need a password?
password. It's the password.
Yeah. Password.
And password confirmation.
Okay. We're just going to try this and see what happens. And then we're going to have to create a post with author. No, I'm doing user ID now.
On the post?
Yeah,
Okay, so plus on the user.
yeah. That's
So you say user.
user, and then you, like that. Okay, so this is how you would pass. So you have to create the user, and then you have to add the user to the post. Now we can do an expect. So what is expect? You can look at here for a reminder. No, but
So what is that, where is that method in? The one that you're
yeah.
using? It's in post, right? Is it a class method or an instance method? Is it on the whole post or is it on one post in particular?
So one post.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's an instance method.
Okay, so you call the post first.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
So
So you
on one post, are you individual posts?
call the method author.
dot email.
No,
And so this is what, if you call this, what do you expect it to be?
to
Equal
And what should it be?
user dot
yeah.
or
Well, user at
gmail.com.
okay. Oh yeah, so now the post by method fails because we messed. But this passes. So I'm going to make it fail by changing what it's expecting. And now it failed, and it's saying it expected trudy@email.com, but it got, so when you called p.author, what it got was user@email.com. Does that make sense? So, and this is not in the notes, so we're not going to go into it really that much, but it will bring me to another point where sometimes, eventually, writing all of these things can become onerous, especially if you have like big models with a lot of validations and you have to write every single time you write a test, you have to write like post.create or whatever. So there's like a gem called Factory Girl, which makes this easier by creating factories, which is basically just creating a fake instance of a thing. And then you can just bring that in. So you don't have to do this creating the post every single time.
You basically create instructions to create one.
Yeah.
So you can pass in, like, it's a factory. You want a post, you pass it in the data that you actually care about. So if you cared about a title, you pass the title. If you didn't care, it would make something afterward.
Yeah.
So you can only pass in the things that you're actually testing, which makes it a lot easier. So you don't have to make sure that you have all your validations covered. You just literally pass in a test title, passing the title, and expecting this to be this.
Yeah.
Factory Girl.
Factory Girl.
That girl's really great.
Sorry?
It is really great.
Yeah. And like that book that I mentioned will also, there's like a few things, like Faker also works. If you want to make like a ton of fake emails, Faker will just like help. There's like.
You can do the same thing in, you can do similar things in like Factory Girl.
Yeah,
You can, like give it sequences or like more of some stuff.
Yeah. Predominantly what I use to test is Factory Girl and RSpec. There's a lot of other gems that you can use.
The basics for testing is, this is how it was explained to me. There's 3 steps of it. You set up your test, you do your, whatever you're testing, and then you assert what you want at the end, like what you want to actually test. So if you think about those 3 steps, you set up, you call whatever you're trying to do, and then you assert.
Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, the assertion. So here's like the gem file for Factory Girl. Yeah, so the assertion is like what you expect it to be. And like, since you're making the data, like you have to make all the data so you know what to expect. Factory Girl does help that out, especially if you have big models with a lot of validations, because you don't want to have to be creating this thing for every single test, especially once you get into like a lot of testing.
You can also set up RSpec to do like before blocks too. So at the top of your test, if you are always going to do like a post or a user, you can set it up at the very top, and then use it throughout the rest of your tests, and only change the things that you need to change. But if you just need a user, like if you're testing posts, then you just need like some kind of random user, just set up a user at the top of your test file, and then if anyone's interested in it.
Yeah.
That way you don't have to like keep creating things over and over again. You can also do like before blocks where it will create the post for you before each test. So you don't have to keep telling like P create. Create. You do the same every time you create this.
Yeah. Before every action, create a post. Before every action, create a user. And then so it cuts like a big chunk. And then here you would you can override certain things if you need to.
Testing. It's good.
It's a hard habit to get into, but it is.
Yeah, and like I feel like it's kind of one of those things that like one day if you don't test, it'll bite you in the ass, and then you'll realize the testing's really good. Sorry? Yeah, I mean, like I realized for like these projects it's kind of hard because you're like figuring things out. It's also hard to test when you're just figuring things out. So it's probably a really good exercise to go back once it's done and then just start testing at least your models, like at least the methods in your models. I guess we can go for a break maybe now. So that's the lesson for today. We can do like class project time, but then Robin also brought up, because I've been like helping him like debug things, and maybe going through debugging a little bit, or like how to solve problems might help. So I guess we can do that after the break.
Is there a way to debug on your server?
Yeah, I mean, normally what I do is I raise errors and then go into the console in the error log, and like, that's how I do it.
You can also,
I'm interested in Pride.
Pry, yeah.
Or Bug is easier,
So you
actually.
want to do like debugging, like debugger and JavaScript? Yeah, so it's similar to that, but what happens is your console is running and like your server running, and what you do is actually stop the process or you have that thing, so you can actually interact with it on the command line. And like, so you can see, like, you put it inside rack and you're like, what are the brands I have access to right now? The things that I already started to have here, actually here. So you can do something like that.
Yeah, I just do a raise error for that. Usually I don't use that, but sometimes I'll use Rails longer.
Sure, real longer, but I like breaking it, so I can like test it.
But that's
out
what
over
I do, right? I
again.
just raise error.
Yeah, and then I play around.
Have them constantly running.
Yeah.
But yeah, I
Right.
but I tried sometimes, but I forget it comes
It's also, Pride is really good if you are working on like remote servers or
Yeah,
you
it's
use
easier.
like Orbit to run all of your services.
Well, I just figured how I was going to do
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different ways to do that, like,
Now we're
okay, what time do we do?
Like 10, 5,
10 to 8 guys, back at 10 to 8.
Oh, how was your trip?
I'm gonna
Good then.